We have a time in your life, if you are a Christian, that Christ has come to you, that you have come to Christ. What was that time like? What happened? What were you doing during that time? Do you hear what I'm asking you all? I'm asking you all to think in your minds. What was life like before giving my life to Christ? In a short 15 to 20, 30 seconds. Then, what happened when Christ came to me? What was going on? And then the Apostle Paul says his AD experiences after Christ. He was pleased to reveal his Son to me so that I might preach him among the Gentiles. The Apostle Paul ended up with a ministry. He ended up with a job to do. His whole life changed. It was a 180 shift within his life. There was a BC Christ experience and then an AD after Jesus Christ. My question to you is, when you came to Christ and since then, what have been some of the changes? Now, does that mean that everything's right? Most of you know me well enough to hear that I don't preach prosperity gospel, which means once you become a Christian, you're going to have all the money you need, you're going to buy all the goods you want, your family's going to be wonderful, it's going to be a Ken and Barbie household, you're going to have awesome kids and they're all going to be great. That's not real. The reality is, after you become a Christian, there's still issues. We still sin. There's still struggles. But there is and not just something, there is a deeper peace. As Jesus says, peace I leave with you. Peace not as the world gives. Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. It's the peace that Paul says in Galatians chapter 1 earlier when he says, grace and peace be given to you. Peace. It's the absence of fear in the midst of a conflict. Peace, the ability to stay calm in the midst of being on the storms of life. So this morning, I want you to just think about not just the Apostle Paul here, his experience, but this is, all of us can take our story, our life, we overlay it onto Paul's life. Some of us are old enough to remember when overheads came out. I mean, that was really a big thing back in the 60s and 70s. The overhead projector came out. You could lay things on top of each other, and you could build the map. I mean, that was so cool to watch how a map would be built, and just putting the sheets on top of each other. This is sort of like that for you and me. I can overlay my BC Christ AD experience on Paul's experience. You can overlay yours on mine. We all can overlay each other's experience for this model. Now, some of you may be wondering, Greg, why are you talking about this morning? Because this is Memorial Day. This is the time that we're called to be in remembrance of our men and women who have given so much of their life for our freedoms. And friends, that's why we need to talk about this. Because the reality is, we live in a nation where we have political freedoms and we have religious freedoms. But sometimes with those religious freedoms, we clam up. And do you know the church is growing faster in cultures where the church is not free? China, the church has exploded in the last years. Why is that? Because there's persecution. And because people there are willing to say their DNA is a Christian, and they are willing to share their faith, even though it may mean their life. We have so much freedom here, we don't dare share our faith. Isn't that ironic? I mean, there's something wrong with that picture. People in China don't have freedom, but the Christians share. We have freedom, but we're fearful to share. A lot of times we're fearful to share because we say, we don't know what to say. None of you can say that anymore. Hopefully some of you took notes on your little paper or take notes in your brain. When you go home, when you go home today, I want you I encourage you, be the school teacher now, give you a homework assignment. When you go home, write down BC on a piece of paper, put a cross, and write down AD. Really easy. BC, cross, AD. Underneath each one, write just 3 or 4 things. What was life like before Christ? What was missing in your life? What were you searching for? What were some of the things that you were trying to do to fill that void in your life? 4 or 5 things, really small. Then, when did Christ come to you? When did he make himself real to you? After that, underneath the AD, write down a few things of how your life changed. I know I've shared this little story before, but for myself, one of my major moments of my BC AD was when I was 14 years old. Growing up in the church, went to youth group, Sunday school, all that. But being a preacher's kid, a lot of preacher's kids sort of struggle, you know. Is it just what we do because our dad or mom does it? When I was 14 years old, at a high school retreat, Gull Lake area, Gun Lake area, I forget which one right now. We were doing devotions, and I didn't feel like doing devotions. Squirrel was outdoors. I said, God, if you are really real, I'm not going to do my devotions. I'm just going to watch that squirrel. And that squirrel is going to stay outdoors in by the window that I'm sitting at until the devotion time is done. And the squirrel's going to have to leave before they ring the bell, because, of course, if they ring the bell, devotions are done, then the squirrel's going to run away. For about 20-25 minutes, that squirrel played. I was feeling called to go to the ministry at that time, but really didn't want to. You know, high school kids, you want to get involved in more things of drinking and different things like that. But just having that pull go on. I'm watching this squirrel for 20-25 minutes, not doing anything else with my Bible. The squirrel left. I thought, ha, God, there you go. See? It didn't work. About 15-20 seconds later, the buzzer went off. Devotion time was done. For me, that's a very small, some of you can say, well, that's a really small little story. Well, it is, but for me, it's also a huge story. Because God showed himself, Jesus Christ showed himself for real to me for what I had asked him to do. The idea of throwing the Gideon fleece out. Some of you may know what I'm talking about with that. If you don't, talk to me. I'll explain that to you later. It's throwing the fleece out. So this morning, I'm not telling you anything majorly new, but hopefully for all of you, maybe next week we should have you all come up and share your BCAD story. Yeah, some of you are saying, yeah, that'd be good. I think we might have just a half a dozen of us in church next Sunday. But we actually are going to have somebody from church who's going to share their story next week. It's going to share their story with us. But I encourage you, when you go home today, write down BC, cross, AD. Write down just 4 or 5 things underneath each one. And then strive to commit that to memory so that when you have an opportunity to share your faith, whether you're at work, whether you're at play, whether you're in the bank, whether you're at the grocery store, it is amazing where you can find opportunities to share your faith. We can do it in 60 seconds or less. Okay? Doesn't have to be a whole half-hour sermon. 60 seconds or less, we can share our faith. So I encourage you to think about that and do it. Next week, we're going to look at another method of sharing our faith and also have somebody share their testimony. Lord, this morning as we come before you, we come knowing that you are the great and awesome God. Lord, we come knowing that you have created us. We come knowing that, Lord, we have your DNA, and that DNA